Hola mi gente, MsMalcolmHughes back with another book review. And May was my birthday month, so I have balloons in honor of my birthday month. Alright, so today we are going to be discussing Call Me Toni by Deana Dean. So if you all remember from the book that I reviewed, Boy Crazy, part 1 and 2, Toni was one of Chloe's, the main character's, really good friends, and someone that apparently folks really enjoyed from the book, and she got her own story. So the story of Call Me Toni really gives us background and context to the character of Toni from the story, why she is the way she is, who her family is, just their historical context, so that we'll have a better understanding of why Toni is the way Toni is. So one thing I can say about this book that I really enjoyed is that it deals with trauma. And I think it deals with a lot of traumatic issues in the Black community that we don't really talk about. So it deals with rape, it deals with incest, it deals with the predatory behavior of sometimes elders within the community or older individuals in the community to prey on their younger family members, their younger friends of the family, right? It deals with the fact that that's not often talked about. It deals with the fact that sometimes the parents of these individuals enable them in some manner, or they ignore it or pretend that it isn't happening, or they don't see it, and they coddle them, specifically and especially the Black men who partake in this behavior, and how these women enable them and protect them, even their mothers, the matriarchs generally. It also deals with the trauma of drug abuse, right? It deals with infidelity. It deals with the children who are left behind when households split, right? It deals with drug addiction. It deals with parents fleeing and how that impacts the children. It deals with a lot of issues that I think are not often discussed publicly in the Black community. I think they're discussed often. I just don't think they're discussed often publicly. And I can't say that I really appreciated those aspects of the story. I enjoyed getting those different points of view. I enjoyed all of it. However, there is a however. I didn't always feel that this aligned with the story that we got for Toni based on Boy Crazy. And I think that's the hard part when you're giving characters their own storylines, because as a reader, I'm going to go back to what you've told me or what I've been able to infer from the other story. And if it doesn't align, I'm gonna have questions. It was less of a case of this doesn't align and more of a case of this could be true. It's not what I got, but it could be true, right? So we learned here that eventually Portia and her brother, after having issues with their parents and the mother dying and the father not really being able to take care of them, they end up living with his mother for a while, which is not the best situation. So they end up living with one of their grandparents for a while, and this isn't the best situation. And eventually their aunt, their mother's sister, takes them in, Auntie Mama, and their whole lives change as a result of that for the better. In many ways, even though she was young, she took on the responsibility. And that's really one foundational piece, this new character that really shows sometimes how the dynamic works, family supporting each other, dealing with generational trauma, right? How she protected them in ways that she wasn't protected, and also generational divides, right? The mother and them not having a great relationship, and then her not having a great relationship with her granddaughter, while coddling her brother the same way she coddled her own son. So it unpacks a lot of that, and I think that was well done. I actually really enjoyed those aspects of the book. Piece that was a little bit frustrating for me really had to do with Toni and the decisions she was making and how she was growing into a young woman. I thought it was all beautiful. I just felt like it was a different Toni than what we really got to see in the other book. And now granted, we didn't really get to learn much about Toni in the other book, but as far as her background, we just got to see her in the present. But even still, with all of this knowledge here, I cannot see how Toni got from this to the Toni that we met, right? Not saying it's impossible, I just don't see it. And the book ends in a place that we know that there would be a part 2. Let me say this though, the ending was so good. The ending is so good. I didn't really see it coming. I'm not gonna spoil the surprise. There are moments when you're like, okay, what? How does this connect? What is going on? But the way it all comes together at the end is so good. I was surprised. I was engaged. I did not want it to stop. Like, what? And it all comes together and it unpacks. Well, first it explodes. In this moment of all the trauma coming to a head, all of the secrets coming to a head, everything now is forced to be out in the open. There is a reckoning. We do not see the conclusion, but baby, it is so good. I will give the author that. Deana Dean, you did that. Yeah, that ending really made me want to read the next one. So the trajectory for Toni, we get to see her in romantic relationships, which was nice. I'm now curious how she gets from this romantic relationship to the one in the other story. Worried about the timeline. The timeline issues are bothering me, I must admit. Just comparing ages and timelines, I'm curious. Because it's not adding up for me. But I think the story is good. I think that the characters are captivating, and I want to see how the author brings it all together. I think that her journey into discovering who she wants to be and what career path she would like to take is interesting, right? I'm also curious how she kind of made the shift from fashion to beauty, even though she is doing both. Her interest and focus right now are more so on fashion, so I'm interested to see how certain things that I perceive as gaps will connect. I'm interested to see the dynamic between her and her brother and how that changes, and they feel a lot closer here than they did in the other books. I'm interested to see how that will develop. But that's my big flaw. It wasn't the writing. I think the writer did a good job. It wasn't always as captivating as I desired, but it was fine. I think my big issue was always looming in the back of my head was like, I don't know if the timeline is aligning. Like, I get that if you've written something a long time ago, it's my same frustration with Sister Souljah, same frustration with J.K. Rowling, right? Authors who, when you have these stories over a period of time, when you go back and you're adding details or you're enhancing the story, it has to align, right? We cannot see big gaps or character flaws as readers because we are reading this closely. Obviously not more closely than the writer, but you can't just recreate it. So that was my big question here. I was like, I don't know if the timeline is aligning, and that was a bit of a big question mark for me the entire time. But overall, like I say, I enjoyed this read. I thought that it was a good book. I think that the trauma piece is really good. I think that the topics that are being unpacked need to be discussed more, and I think that's what really holds the book together for me, that the writer is really discussing and analyzing and really going into a lot of topics in the Black community that aren't discussed publicly enough. So overall, I enjoyed the book. I do have big questions, but for me, overall, I would give this book a B. I thought it was fine. I thought it was a good book. Not like blown away, but I thought that it was a good read. I'll definitely be reading part 2, and I'm interested to see how things will connect and if the timeline will be caught up, and just how everything with Toni, how we get from this Toni to the Toni that we originally met. And maybe we don't, but I'm curious to see the direction the author will take it in. So that's it for me, y'all. As always, I'm MsMalcolmHughes, one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. And the next book review that will be coming your way was the only new book I read this month, and that is called Punch Me Up to the Gods. So I'll see you all when I post that. Adabo. Also, for those of you inquiring, I do still have buttons, my Ms. Malcolm Hughes pins, and the details on how to get those are below.